Hey, good evening, guys. Ken at Tortoise Capital. This is the um, Foundational Trading Book Club check-in session for February 28th, 2024. We're in session 8, about two-thirds of the way through. One of the things I just felt like I should say is that the reason to buy the book and to study it carefully is that you can get routine trades like this one, which is Disney, which yesterday had closed very well into a compound critical state, and we were prepared for sharp moves in either direction. And what we got in the morning was an immediate sell-off, which triggers our opening range 3 entry and setup. There's the opening range of the first 3-minute bar, which means that we are prepared under these circumstances to go long on a breakout above that bar or go short on a breakdown below that bar. And we would use a carefully calibrated risk box, in this case of about 30 cents. Based on statistics, we know that that is a minimum manageable risk box in Disney. And so we get the entry here after it breaks out, put our risk box on. It immediately blasts through the close, making up all that loose ground. Continues when it makes that little wiggle, and we have 3R in hand, and we are north of the volume weighted average price. We put a second position on. When it gets to here and the 30-period regression line has rolled over, we know that it's time to take our exit at the calibrated parabolic stop and reverse, which means that on that trade, the first position returned 6R, and the second position returned 2R for a total of 8R. On a $100 risk, you ended up buying 35 shares per 100, I'm sorry, 350 shares per $100 risked. And for each $100 that you risked, you made $800 between 8:30 and 11:30. So that's 3 hours of work. And if you risked 100 and you made 800, that's about $267 or something. Yeah, $267 an hour per $100 risked. The afternoon continuation patterns didn't lose any money. They made a fraction. But that's what you get when you apply our methods on a routine basis. That's one of 20 trades that we did today that were routine. So I just feel like in the middle of learning about what's in the book, it's leading you to that style of trading right there. No overnight risk, high percentage plays, low risk ideas, very favorable reward to risk characteristics, and very manageable because we're trading symbols like Disney. All right, so here's where we are in the schedule. Session number 8, February 28th. We're taking a look at those 30-odd pages. We are in section 12 of the book, Mastering the Trade, Part 2. We're going to see a lot of this here has to do today with the community of practice for learning and team building, and has a lot to do with creativity and trust, and why those are such powerful edges with you and your accountability group. Now, next week, we have one more set of detailed components of our various trading strategies and systems and modules to fill in the gaps. Session 10, we're going to be looking at a handful of featured traders, 10 of them. Session 11, we'll be answering any final questions you have as you put together your personal trading plan. And I'll also talk about coaching. And then session 12 will be the final Q&As after you've had a chance to digest and maybe go back and review the various pieces and parts. Then that will be the final session on the 27th of March. The other thing that I want to say is that I'm going to show about 4 or 5 slides tonight because a lot of the details in there didn't really lend itself to the micro print that we use on the one-page note sheet. So what I want to show is that in your online version of this course, the reference material, the book club, book 1, foundational trading, when you go to the modules and lessons in section 1, again, all the live chat recordings, like tonight's recording, will go in here. So there's 7 audio files in there right now of the previous sessions that we've done. And then all of the slides, which I've emailed to you in the chat, messaged you in the chat window, will also be in here. So the note sheets that support each one of these lectures that we've done can be found in there for you to download. In addition, we've been accumulating some additional lessons that have come out of the Q&A where I've gone a little bit deeper into detail than could be contained on a single note sheet. So these each are an hour long, and they are similar to the depth and quality of the things that we do in our foundations course, in the Creativity 202 course, and in the Kata 2 challenge course. But we spend a lot of time on the max pain range compression, which is my default swing trade pattern. We talked a lot about why compound critical states are so important with a really good note sheet from one of our student traders. In 103, that lesson, we're talking about the Bollinger Band mean and the reversion to the mean trade and why that's such a powerful idea in every time frame. In 104, we talked about the blended monthly rebalancing and core/position trading. This is our long-term multiple weeks and once a month strategies. What I added today was a special report on creativity, storytelling, excuse me, and the U.S. Army Special Forces. This comes out of a staff paper that I provided to our 3-star general, who's in charge of all Army schools around the world. And this is an update on our 3-year project to use storytelling, which is what we teach in Creativity 202. We use that book, which was written by my research partner, Angus Fletcher, to produce curriculum for the U.S. Army that is being broadly adapted across all Army schools, and which Fletcher has taken out into the world of education, Hollywood, Fortune 15 companies with great success. You have access to exactly that course and that material with a trading focus. It can be used for other than trading, but it is absolutely fantastic for trading, because what I've done is taken Fletcher's field guide for Army training on creativity and added to it trading lessons. and there are 30 chapters with practical exercises in the field guide. And I've added 30 lessons on trading that are correlated to the big insights that he has in his six-part work. That's some groundbreaking stuff that has been featured in Harvard Business Review and in the New York Academy of Sciences Journal. This is the only place on the planet that you can get that thing with detailed application for trading. And we've got 2 years of experience of teaching that course with hundreds of hours of existing lab work and Q&A sessions with previous students that are available to you. The price on that's going to go up this summer just because of demand. And you have a chance to get access to some world-class curriculum that will give you a lifelong edge in the markets. In addition to those lessons, there's also the audiobook sound files where I've recorded the course, or I've recorded the book, and place those all in here so you can, if you click on that, you could see these are all downloadable MP4s that you can get access to. There's some background material from the authors, and then this is a selected set of research projects that go deeply into the work of some of our most successful students who have been applying this work for years. And then the research workshop is where they come in and do their annual coaching with me. And some of the best ideas that we have from that are located in this section. And that's about 25 hours of material. And I've added about 50 hours of material inside here, some advanced concepts for swing and hybrid trading, just to flesh it out. So you're getting quite a good deal with this course to supplement the book. When this course is over, this will become a home study course that'll be available to the world for a fee. It'll be in the $297 price range. So you're getting a pretty good deal. If you're in the sound of my voice and you would like to make this course available to friends, family, or associates, I'll give you the ability to give them a discounted price. They'll be able to get this course for $97 because of your word and your reference. Whereas their normal price would be $297. So you can save them a couple $100 if you've got some people that think that you think that all of this material might be useful for. That's a pretty good deal when you take a look at all of the reference and research material. All right, let's go to the game film now. All right, now here's a quick summary of the text material in the book. I'm going to go through this fairly quickly in order to get to the breakout slides to go a little deeper into some of the concepts. But under the keywords, there is a discussion on page 236 of how we use the websites at Basecamp and Campfire as a way to organize our infrastructure for all our community of practice to collaborate together as part of just being members of the community. Campfire is an asynchronous chat room where we post all our charts for review. And then Basecamp is a file storage and collaboration area where you can work on both of these asynchronously and in accountability groups to conduct your accountability partnership. On pages 239 and 240, we talk about what it means to create craft knowledge and why that's so important for trading, which we consider to be a craft profession. That's the how-to knowledge that is tested in practice, tied together by theory, but really proven in the day-to-day operation of trading. And then we talk about how we use interest paths or desire paths on page 239 in order to follow the curiosity and interest in our research projects. So we like to follow price where it leads after we frame the trade in both directions. And we also use desire paths and interest groups to help us shape the direction that our research goes. And it's 99% of the time seizing an opportunity or solving a problem or both. We spend a lot of good quality time talking about what it means to be able to work with trusted others and what it means to be a person of trust. What is it about you that establishes your trustworthiness to others? And we think that's a central feature of our community of practice, is being able to work with other folks that we can trust all the way. And so we see that in the material on true storytelling a lot, and I'll cover that a little bit more in a second. The idea of a point man is expressed on page 250, and the idea there is to say that when you assemble a staff meeting of all the pieces and parts of your trading category, and they're sitting around a table, and this is a top level view, and the chief of staff who calls the meeting together on behalf of the owner, that's the person that we're trading for. And for me, that's my family tree that I have a supervisory responsibility for. I'm the oldest brother in this generation. So I have responsibilities to our extended family as being one of the graybeards. And we are trading for the estate. We are trading for the tribe with a 200-year time horizon. So when I act as a chief of staff, it's always clear that we have those folks in mind, the legacy. And then around the table, as I've talked about in previous lessons, we have researchers and accountants and designers and architects and the trader and the fireman. Well, on page 250, we talk about the point man, and the point man is a really important part of our trading process. That's the guy that has taken all of that prepared material and is brave enough to cross the line of departure, or the LD, and off he goes out to face enemy forces that are trying to ambush him or whatever. And so we spend some time examining who this little brave character is that's out there braving the elements and trying to see the tigers before the tigers see him, and be able to react to contact, and then to make the entry and get the risk in, and then manage the trade. And as soon as he gets in, we have his partner, the fireman, whose job it is to take the initial stop, which caps our losses at -1R, and get that stop above our entry, so that if we entered here, we can as quickly as we can get our position to no lose plus dinner for two, in order to create a psychological state of mind in our trading such that the worst thing that'll ever happen to us after that is that we're only going to win $100, or whatever the significant dollar figure is to you. And we have learned through decades of practice that when you can move from a position of concern and anxiety for the trade that you've just taken and get to no lose plus dinner for two, and turn this into a science project, that you're able to increase your resilience a lot and be able to endure the anxiety and challenges of the market, because you have a way to manage that in a systematic way. We talk about the importance of that and the respect that we have for the point man who's making the decision to enter or not in the moment. And we look at that as a really brave part of yourself. And we never judge him harshly for the decisions he made because he's working off of the prep that we gave him. So we don't hold him personally responsible for that. We take a look at that. We take a look at all the results as an opportunity to review how well we planned and prepared so that this guy could execute. So we never hold him at fault. We simply look at that as a way to improve our procedure. So the idea of the point man is that he's one of the guys sitting around the table, as is the fireman, as is the chief of staff, as the exit manager, the accountant, the risk manager, the designer, the researcher, and so forth. We use a lot of metaphors and analogies in our trading to help us understand. And now OGs, because those are stories. And stories is how our brains organize the things that we know and organize the way we make sense about new information that comes in. So when something happens to us out in the world and that trigger comes in, we quickly put it into stories from our catalog of stories in order to make sense. So this section on pages 235 to 244 talk about why trading is like a path. And it leads us into a deeper discussion of the creativity course, what the path to mastery looks like and why that's like mountain climbing, and how walking a path creates meaning and who have earned their journey and why that reflections on your path and reflections on your learning leads to confidence, maturity, and expertise. And we talk about how a true storytelling circle allows us to come together with groups of people to tell our true stories, to listen to the true stories of others in a non-judgmental way, and use the qualities of safety, trust, truth as they lead to opportunity in that true storytelling circle. And that's why we've adopted that model for our check-ins and our accountability groups. So this is just a little bit more about base camp and craft knowledge. One of the powerful features of an accountability group is why it helps you get unstuck. If you looked at trading as a solitary process and you had to master all of the skills around that staff table that I just drew before in order to be successful, it's entirely possible that you're having a problem in one of those areas, and maybe that's what's getting you stuck. And because that one problem area might be negating all the goodness that's going on elsewhere. It turns out that when you are working in an accountability group and in a community of practice, that when you are stuck over here, if you get stuck in that one spot and you come in and simply bravely tell a true story about that, there's a fighting chance that somebody else in that circle has had that same problem and can ask a good question or share a resource that helps you get unstuck. By the same token, one of the things that you do when you come to an accountability circle, a true story circle, with your particular issue where you are stuck, is that it's not just about you, that when you've used up all of your mental energy and you can't figure out how to get unstuck, well, it's time to shift gear and listen to some of the things that the other guys are struggling with, and there's a good chance you can help them. And then simply the act of shifting your focus away from the problem area for a while, and then selflessly helping others with their problems will generate energy and insights and gratitude, which will probably result in you finding a new way to examine your issue and discovering a way to handle it. So it turns out that the accountability circle, the true story circle, is a place where you help others and others help you by default. And it really helps you quickly get unstuck through service to others. It gets you out of your fishbowl. And sometimes we just need a simple nudge from someone else in order to take the own advice that we already know we should do, but we're not for some reason. And so if they can say it, sometimes that is the same thing that we were thinking, but that extra confirmation gives us the ability to act. By extension, storytelling and narrative really help us solve problems. And the reason for that is that for tens of thousands of years, before the scientific method came along and the Western Enlightenment, we developed evolutionary brains even before we had writing, even before we had science. And what we had inside that beautiful brain of ours was a collection of words and concepts and stories with an enormous number of connections that stored the wisdom of ages in there. And so that when we have a problem, it turns out that that creative story thinking in our brain finds a way to pull together pieces and parts to allow us to come out with success. The creative spark of our storytelling mind and the storytelling minds of others who are helping us craft that story allow us to navigate our way through complexity and chaos and come out the other side. Whereas the scientific method requires a rigorous pursuit of objective truth and universal certainty, story thinking, which is what helped us get to the top of the food chain and survive through the millennium, only needs a hint to get well started, because all we have to do is come up with a provisional solution that leads to effective action, which we can refine later through the application of science. But this inductive and deductive and abductive reasoning that goes on through the process of story thinking, which is what Angus Fletcher's written his best-selling books about, and which our Creativity 202 course is about, and which the 50-year academic career of my mentor, David Bogie, is all about. That story thinking, which enabled us to survive as a species for tens of thousands of years, comes to the front when we learn how to unleash the power of our storytelling and story thinking brain. That's what Fletcher's books are about. That's what Creativity 202 is about. And there is a beautiful 1-hour podcast where Fletcher is interviewing one of my students, Lieutenant Colonel Tom Gaines, who's a U.S. Army Special Forces active duty officer. And that's where Angus Fletcher and Lieutenant Colonel Gaines are talking about the last 3 years of research and work that we've done together as a team. And it gives you a beautiful hour-long discussion of just exactly this, these ideas, which which I've simply summarized for you in a couple minutes. But it's really worth your time to listen to the power of their ideas, because you're going to discover that it's not just about trading. It's about life. It's about teaching your kids. It's helping your neighbors with their problems, or if you're in a community action project and you want to be a good neighbor. The use of storytelling and narrative to solve problems is not just limited to trading, although that's what I talk about in the book. But in reality, this is the most transformative teachings that I've come across in my 45-year career as a professional educator. It's that powerful. it affects every single thing that I do. Well, one of the things that you get from the use of creativity in problem solving is the ability to make micro improvements. And when I talk to our generals about why they should adopt the Fletcher treatment for creativity, I used this story. I said, sir, imagine how long you spend in your life in meetings trying to figure out how the other guys are trying to get you. How long do you spend trying to figure out how others are trying to get you? And the general consensus is about 90% of our time in meetings in the real world are spent in trying to figure out how the other guy is going to get me or where my organization is going to be at risk. And then if they're not going to get you, if you've satisfied yourself, you've only got about 10% of your time and energy left to do something with the opportunity that the collaboration represents. So I point out to them, I said, what if you surrounded yourself in that true story circle with trusted others in a community of practice, and you were sure that on whatever your project was, that they're coming from many different points of view, and you can trust them to tell you their best truth in such a way that the tribe can thrive? What if you could start every meeting with an evidence-based belief that that was true? I submitted to him that it wouldn't be surprising if you could get a 3% improvement in your performance per year. And the Department of Defense budget is about $1 trillion a year. And if you multiply that by 3%, you get a net present value of about $35 billion. And then my general officer, who's a good one, said, but really, this is a 3% improvement on every decision that you make. What if you could get a nudge better on every single decision that you make? It's worth a lot more than 35 billion. It's worth 10 or 20 times that. And that's why I was able to persuade them to adopt this form of developing our creativity in all ways across all Army schools. The power of that should not be underestimated. In the same way, we teach this idea that if you've got a bucket of trades, right, you've got all these trades that you've performed, and let's say that you got 100 R out of those trades, and you wanted to add 10 more R. One of the ways that you could do that was try to make your rules perfect and adapt them in such a way that you could get one more 10R trade. What we think is a better way to do that is to take a look at the histogram of trades that you've produced and ensure, number one, that you've never taken a loss greater than 1R, that you have very strictly controlled the left-hand side of your histogram, and that the zero line is here. And then if we go out to 2R, what we want to look for is a shape of your trades that looks normal, so that we have reasons to believe that you have a natural, repeatable, robust trading process that between -1 and +2 is positive expectancy, which funds all of your research and operations. And that's the second thing that we look for. The first thing we look for is no losses greater than 1R, which means that you have taken care of your risk management. And then we're looking for a natural, normal, positive expectancy trading process between -1 and +2R. And then the third thing that we look for is a fat right tail, which on occasion gives you wins much larger than two are. And what that means is that we've strictly controlled the left-hand side of the curve, and we've exposed ourselves to large fat tails on the right-hand side, and that the bulk of our trades fall between -1 and +2, which gives us the positive expectancy and which pays us to be available for those bigger wins, which we treat as icing on the cake and recognition that good things can happen to bad people. That is what craft knowledge looks like. And that's the shape of the results that we're aiming for in our style of trading. In order to trade in that way, you need to have the full professional team around the table with you under your chief of staff. You've got to have strategists and planners and architects and a designer and a general contractor and a trader, a point man, a fireman, an exit manager, an asset allocator, an accountant, a tax man, a record keeper, a researcher. All of those people on your team need to be coordinated and work together in order to trade in just such a manner as a professional. And these pages here, 250 to 251, talks about the application of the Fletcher treatment to trading systems and how that led us to that idea of the internal parts model and how we personified the different tasks and skill sets that we needed. Because one of the things that you get when you use story thinking is that you create a story and you populate it with characters like these guys that are sitting on your trading team, and you put them in a situation in which they've got to perform. And then finally, on pages 256 through 258, we talk about this idea about I was lucky enough to be prepared and what that really means for a professional and what professionalism means across the plan, prepare, execute, and assess model. Griff talks about, in his synthesis, the daily debriefing, which concerns both content and process, and why that had such a profound effect on him, and why he learned that process management helped him improve his content, and why it's important each day to leave some slack time so that you can do some reflective thinking about the big picture for both content and process. So this was a series of essays and insights that gets to the guts of populating your trading plan. I wanted to just hit some highlights from these other charts. I've presented these ideas as a guest speaker at some academic conferences. And what I want to just say is that, look, the secret of success in our trading, the secret sauce, it's not secret, it's only rare. And that is that people appreciate true storytelling, deep listening, and accountable actions with your teams. And that we create, through true storytelling, places of safety where we can learn to trust each other and ourselves and learn to tell more and more of the truth in order to create opportunities to get better. And it turns out when you can do that, that it's an acquired taste that is addictive. And the rarity is in the willingness of people to do the work that it takes to do that. And what does that work look like? Here's the formula. Just enough planning, ruthless and relentless preparation, trained professional battle drill in your execution to execute your rules, and then rigorous assessment of your execution, of your preparation, of your planning, and then assessment of your own assessment program to make sure that you are as well prepared as you can be for those moments when you have to be unplanned. I would rather be well prepared than overly planned. preparation is what the key is. And then we learned how we can use a systematic approach of aligning ourselves and our purpose with actions and leveraged professional tools to overcome the challenges of underperformance, which is the way we've always done it, the old habits that we have, and then the inertia of not being able to get up to take action. Purpose, action, and artifact, leadership with skin in the game, makes the difference and allows us to overcome these shortcomings. In practice, it turns out that we are creating a learning and performance environment in which we can achieve the maximum sustainable rate of learning. So when we establish the boundaries of our professional domain, ourselves, our performance, our teammates, our community of practice, our goal is to get the maximum sustainable rate of learning and performance for the rest of our lives. And we pull together 3 different bodies of knowledge to do that. And we are going to be rigorous, and each one of these is a trainable body of knowledge of how to do these things. It's not magical thinking. In fact, we professionally describe the standard work that goes into how we teach creativity using the Fletcher treatment, how we teach Dr. David Boge's true storytelling body of knowledge in order to build our accountability groups, and to do that in a standard way. And I'm certified at the highest level on both of those. I'm the only person in the world that can say that, I believe. And we use the Tortoise Trading Foundations to build out the technical trading elements of our professional behavior. And we're looking to do routine things routinely. And we communicate with ourselves and our accountability partners through truth-telling and deep listening in our true storytelling circles, which unleashes the power of our stories to be creative, as we know from the Fletcher treatment for creativity. And then finally, we take a look at our learning in practical ways. We're not trying to learn in order to pass a test. We are learning and testing our learning in live conditions in order to live our lives. And we try to employ natural forces of our human nature and our biological brain and our sociological tribe. We want to use those natural forces to understand why price moves the way it does and how human psychology affects risk and price. And by leveraging those natural forces in the way we tell stories, the way we work together, the way we set up our trading systems, gives us the ability to win the battle against the forces of underperformance, inertia, culture, and status quo. In a nutshell, my favorite little sketch here is circumnavigating the elephant. The elephant represents the mysterious, powerful challenges that are in the world. In our context, it's trading and also mastery of self. And support to the team. We're trying to do all of those 3 things over the long haul. It's hard. Life is hard. And if we can somehow organize an accountability group coming from many different perspectives and respecting all of their different traditions and pathways, we can circumnavigate the elephant and learn to see him in different ways, and then using our trusted storytelling and common language that we can learn about the elephant from each other much more completely and much more deeply and much more quickly than if we tried to do that all ourselves. And by doing that inside of a true storytelling circle, which is a dynamic, safe trusted, truthful circle, we think of the true story circle as a roundabout in which all of these R words are performed and respected because we respect the R. And as an individual going into that circle, we acknowledge and respect the knowledge of our head, heart, gut, hands, and feet, as I've spoken about before. And then all of us in that circle can use that safe, trusted, truthful space to prepare for that long-term engagement with the elephant, which is learning to master ourselves and support our teams and to trade for a living for those that we're trading for. And in that circle, we can rest, relax, recover, reverberate, resonate, reset, repurpose ourselves, review our trading, remember the good and the bad, render it into new stories, reorient ourselves based on how we've rethought our work, conducted reconnaissance of the world around us for the new trading systems, resume our journey when it's time, restory the stories from our past to learn different lessons and to lock in different ideas and to assemble resources, etc. So there's a lot of things going on when you get into a true story circle with trusted others for the purpose of succeeding in those three primary missions. Survive in the trading world, master of self so that you can live an intentional life, and then support to your tribe. That when we learn to collaborate, we can cooperate and we can celebrate the work that we do together. That's what I want to say about our trusted circles and storytelling. And I want to encourage you to go to the work space on the in the OWL group. Go to the creativity, storytelling, and U.S. Army. This is the note that I sent to our 3-star general, and I want to finish up by just highlighting what's in there. And I told him, sir, this is the next cycle of research on creativity through storytelling that builds on the research we did here at our school, the Command and General Staff College, with Professor Fletcher of Ohio State University and Project Narrative, which is the world's leading think tank on story science. This link, The Indigenous Approach, Creativity and Leadership, on their Apple Podcasts, comes from the 1st Special Forces Group, that's the Green Berets, in which Professor Fletcher and Lieutenant Colonel Tom Gaines, a student of mine for the last 5 years, Fletcher and Gaines talk for an hour about the background of theory and practice of how we have been improving our creativity through storytelling. And we're talking about transformational change here. We're not talking about nickel and dime stuff. The story of how that came together is a case of truth being stranger than fiction. It started 5 years ago when Tom Gaines and I were working in a classroom together. I was his instructor, and we were working. I was teaching 2 different classes next to each other. And in each one, there were 16 officers. In Charlie team, where Tom was, he was by far the smartest guy. And he was surrounded with a bunch of hardworking average officers that were just trying to survive and get through the course. He was special. And so I spent a lot of time working with him to stretch him even further. And it was motivated in some ways by the fact that next to us was a team of 16 that had 4 guys that had been selected for the 2nd year advanced school after our 1st year. Now, Tom was selected, but it's like, I don't want to say this harshly, but they had 4 smart guys to talk to, and Tom was by himself. So Tom and I worked together, and the things that we talked about on creativity and um, entrepreneurial thinking and dealing with complexity, he took with him after graduation to that advanced course school. And then he was motivated to go to the University of Chicago School of Entrepreneurial Business to get a master's and an MBA in entrepreneurial business. He took that with him to the first Special Forces group, and then COVID hit. And then Tom put together one of his professors and me and him, and we, during the COVID, and we brought together a group of strategic thinkers and creative people, and we were doing weekly podcasts and work sessions throughout COVID in order to reach out and do more because everybody was locked in at home. Well, as a result of that, the professor at the University of Chicago, who knew I was interested in storytelling because of my work with David Bogie, said, "Oh, you ought to meet my friend Angus Fletcher at Ohio State, who is also working on storytelling." So I introduced myself to Angus, and the story of that is told in that podcast. And on that very narrow chain of custody, if you will, or 6 degrees of separation, we were able to make the connection between the Army and Professor Fletcher, and you couldn't even imagine writing a movie script that is that improbable. But because of the energy and interest of Tom Gaines, a great American hero, we were able to make the connection that led to Angus Fletcher writing a couple best-selling books, for us to do world-class research into creativity and story science. And I've been actually able to blend the work of Angus Fletcher and Western story science with the work of David Bogie, who comes at it from the indigenous ways of knowing and First Nations people. So we're getting the best of Western science with Fletcher and indigenous ways of knowing with David Bogie. Plus, we're adding in the trading that comes from our modest contributions to this. So that unique integration of these three bodies of knowledge are astonishing. That's not even a good enough word to tell you how good it is. But it's the coming together of those three bodies of knowledge, Fletcher's story science, Bogie's true storytelling, my modest work with trading, and my learning as an adult educational theorist and practitioner for 35 years at the master's and doctoral level and in professional schools has enabled us to achieve what I consider to be maximum sustainable rate of learning. It really is kind of astonishing. Other things that you'll find on that web page in the book under the creativity, storytelling, and U.S. Special Forces. You're going to see a couple of short 5 to 7 minute summaries of the research study that we did back in 2021 that got this whole ball rolling. These things are a summary of research. You're going to see a series of short, 90-second to 3-minute videos on YouTube that are cleverly produced by the Project Narrative that describes how we do the teaching of the Special Forces guys in creativity. They're kind of fun. Fletcher got some of his Hollywood buddies to produce those. And then there's some additional materials, like the actual copy of the field guide itself that Fletcher wrote for the Army. That's a bestseller on Amazon, and you can download the PDF for free. Save you a little buck, some money. And this is a paper on how to teach critical thinking as well as creativity. This is a paper that Fletcher just published on how we have been using this creativity to actually teach resilience to third graders. And this is based on work that I had done using creativity for my soccer kids. I showed Angus what I was doing, and he exported it into a program. We now have a nationwide program of teaching resilience to kids based on work that we did here in Leavenworth with the Soccer Academy. The creativity meta study is about 100 pages of science that represents the work that we did with the U.S. Army and why we have a scientific basis for the claims that we make about how powerful this creativity can be. And then this paper from one of my other students, Major Sam Herbert, put together a program of how to teach creativity as a pilot program for our college, which we're now going to be implementing next year. So what you have here, if I were to sell this, if I were to go to a Fortune 15 company, this would be about $2,000 a head to teach them how to do this stuff. But I think it's important enough that you guys get a chance to review it and take the benefit from it, and as a way of saying thanks to you. All right, so that's everything I wanted to cover tonight. We got just a few minutes before we got to get running. Any final questions or comments from the team? Just come up on the net and sound off. All right, hearing none, it's 8 o'clock. We'll get this published and posted. I will hang this in the live chat recordings. This will go right in here under 20240228, and it'll be labeled probably creativity. So take good care. We'll get this hung here later tonight, and looking forward to seeing you guys next week. All right. Cheers.